Сейчас для меня особая честь передать слово нашему ключевому докладчику. Madame la Secrétaire Générale, vous êtes la bienvenue à МГИМО, и je voudrais vous passer le micro. Я хотела бы передать микрофон госпоже Марии Пейчинович-Бурич, которая является второй женщиной генеральным секретарем в истории Совета Европы. Это огромная ответственность и ключевой доклад, поэтому госпоже генеральному секретарю. The floor is yours.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, what a great introduction. I think what we heard this morning was really witnessing and recomforting of the interlocutor of Council of Europe in Russian Federation. There are of course many more, but I'm particularly pleased that actually my first working visit starts here with this lecture. And I'm quite confident that these 2 days of work we have ahead of you will be very fruitful. Now, you've heard from the Russian Federation actors' point of view how they see our relations, how they see the importance of the Council of Europe for the peace and prosperity in Europe. And I thank you very much for mentioning and citing Nobel Prize winner Sakharov. Because that is what he said is actually what the Council of Europe is about. Peace, prosperity, and human rights goes really hand in hand, and without one part of it, it wouldn't be very successful. So thank you very much for setting up so nicely this first interaction with you, and I'm very glad that МГИМО is this first instance to start my visit. Of course, as we can see, I'm glad that the others have taken off the mask, because with masks it becomes a little bit more difficult to interrelate directly. And I'm glad also that we are here together despite the COVID-19 pandemic. And I think just because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and someone also mentioned how Council of Europe reacted promptly, quickly, and I would say appropriately to the issues that pertain you, because you can imagine that in health emergency situations, it's a big challenge for some of the member states to uphold all our standards. So Council of Europe was and is there to assist member states in that respect. But coming back to this event, I think these in-service training courses for Russian civil servants have now been a tradition for 12 years. This is actually, to my knowledge, the longest standing cooperation that we have with the Russian Federation. And I'm very positive, and we talked on that before starting this exchange, that through this, actually, I think we can raise awareness and raise awareness on important issues for the Council of Europe, for the Russian Federation, but also teach you for your different field of activities wherever they might have a niche to work better. So certainly we at the Council of Europe very much cherish this kind of involvement with the Council with the Russian Federation. Some mentioned, of course, it is important. There is next year important anniversary to come, 25 years of membership of the Russian Federation in the Council of Europe, and I think that also this seminar will allow you to hear from a number of interlocutors how that has been working and what are the challenges, but also what are the achievements along that road. So they certainly comprise a unique platform for dialogue between our organization and decision makers from some 30 federal ministries, agencies, boards, addressing important pan-European issues. Next month, we will mark the 70th anniversary of the European Convention on Human Rights, and as I've been informed, here also at МГИМО, you will also have a special dedicated session for that. I think that's very important because we need to recall why this very basic instrument, we call it at the Council of Europe, the Convention, because it's the very first one, signed by all the member states. In the meantime, we developed over 200, or more precisely 223 different instruments and conventions, but this one remains the key and has inspired many others in different areas. It is an ambitious treaty whose unifying effect has not only changed the law across Europe, but now comprises an essential part of our continent's soul, one in which human rights, democracy, and the rule of law are held dear. The European Convention broke new ground because it put the needs and the dignity of individuals at the center of European justice. It has been ratified, as I mentioned, by all 47 member states of the Council of Europe and are to the benefit of over 830 million Europeans who live within our own legal area. And each of these individuals has the ultimate right to direct appeal to the European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, a court that issues independent judgments in line with the Convention and with which every member state has freely committed to comply. To date, the court has dealt with over 1.5 million individual applicants. 100,000 of them have had their complaints satisfied and remedied. And in light of this, member states have adopted hundreds of structural reforms under the Committee of Ministers' supervision. Alongside the European Social Charter, the European Convention comprises the basis of human rights on our continent today. Over the years, the Council of Europe has developed over 200 legally binding treaties and other instruments in order to apply the Convention's principles to specific issues. These cover a huge range of rights-related challenges, from data protection to cybercrime, to the protection of children from sexual abuse. And they are supported by the work of various bodies. These include our Human Rights Commissioner, the Council of Europe Development Bank, the World Venice Commission, which has become the world's most respected group of constitutional experts and provides independent advice to more than 60 countries. All of this amounts to an extraordinary achievement. No other continent has ever matched it, and none has even tried. But in recent years, we have witnessed throughout the continent an increase in hostility both to the values for which the Council of Europe stands and to the multilateralism itself, a threat that cannot go unanswered. So today, I want to outline just what is at stake and what can be done about it. I want to explore the way in which the Council of Europe has improved life for people in Europe, not least here in the Russian Federation. And I also want to talk about the role that legal professionals and governments alike can play in upholding our common standards, ensuring that citizens experiencing them, and countering those who would undermine or fragment them. It is worth reminding ourselves what life was like in Europe in the wake of the Second World War. The continent has had just witnessed a degree of violence and lawlessness that has unknown in the modern history. Millions of lives had been lost through war, judicial and extrajudicial killings, and of course, the Holocaust. And instead of having rights, individuals and minorities were too often subject to poverty, persecution, and the arbitrary exercise of power and politics. The Council of Europe was a multilateral response intended to ensure that such wrongs could never be repeated. It is difficult to underestimate the difference that human rights laws has made to that. The rights to life, liberty and security, privacy and fair trial, freedom of expression, association and conscience and religion, and freedom from torture, servitude, and discrimination. These laws have revolutionized the status and liberty of the individuals across Europe over a relatively short historical period. This change is best captured when we consider the death penalty. When the Council of Europe was established in 1949, only a handful of countries had abolished it. But today, under the terms of the European Convention, its use is outlawed in all member states, in all circumstances, at all times, including war. And except for Belarus, this has created a death penalty-free zone here in Europe for the first time in history. The Russian Federation is no exception. The Russian Constitutional Court has long since banned the death penalty, and capital punishment has not been applied in over 25 years. Might the time therefore be right to put this firmly in written law by ratifying Protocol 6 and 13 of the European Convention? I hope that the Russian authorities will go on to do this. Of course, this work of applying our human rights laws is not finished. As the European Court of Human Rights has made it clear, the European Convention is a living instrument. It is for our member states to ensure that it is applied to the new and evolving issues we face in a fast-changing world. Recognizing this, the decisions taken at our ministerial session in Helsinki last year have led to further action in important areas. Let me give you some specific examples. On artificial intelligence, ministers recognize that its ever-increasing application must function in a way that protects and promotes our common standards rather than undermines them. For this reason, an ad hoc committee on artificial intelligence is working on a framework for the development, design, and application of artificial intelligence, and is expected to make substantial progress by 2021. And I know that this topic is on your agenda tomorrow. On trafficking in human beings, ministers ask that we examine ways to strengthen our action in addressing and a persistent and in some member states growing problem. Since then, I have published a roadmap for action. Our relevant monitoring body, Greta, has compiled a compendium of good practice and drafted a guidance note to national authorities. Similarly, the Helsinki decisions reaffirm the need for action on equality between women and men, and violence against women and domestic violence. And thank you, Madam Moskalkova, not only mentioning them here, but also for your staunch support of the cause and your vocal work in this important area. On this, our approach includes implementing the current gender equality strategy, the elaboration of a new recommendation on migrant women and refugees, and the continued promotion of our Istanbul Convention. This is the gold standard for addressing violence against women, but misunderstandings and misconceptions have made some member states reluctant to ratify, or, it seems, even considering leaving it. I have been clear about the Council of Europe's willingness to address and resolve these issues through constructive dialogue, and it is right that we should do so. Other priorities determined at Helsinki included strengthening the role and participation of civil society, freedom of expression, including media freedom, addressing inequality, racism, xenophobia, hate speech and discrimination, social rights, and challenges arising from migration. In each of these areas, we have made progress since last year, and we will continue to do so. We can also add to the list the issue of the environment. This has been given new impetus within the organization over recent months, including through a joint declaration by the Committee of Ministers, previous, current, and upcoming presidencies, calling for a non-binding instrument on human rights and the environment by the end of 2021. I support this, and our steering committee for human rights is now considering such a recommendation. The degradation of the environment and the reality of climate change pose a threat to individuals' human rights. This relates to the rights to life and private and family life in the European Convention, and to the right to protection of health covered by the European Social Charter. Cases have been heard in domestic courts and the European Court of Human Rights, and the Council of Europe has produced environment-related conventions that we are now looking to make as effective as possible. Acting within our mandate, we need to ensure that our common European standards are applied to this pressing issue too. Some issues, of course, flare quickly or arrive unexpectedly. Few could have predicted the sheer numbers of migrants and refugees who fled to Europe in recent years, seeking to escape violence, bloodshed, and poverty alike. The Council of Europe has no mandate to manage migration, but the European Convention on Human Rights does apply to every individual who arrives in our common legal area, and their rights must be respected. And we have reacted swiftly to help member states achieve this. Our work has covered the standard of accommodation in reception centres, the importance of preventing illegal pushbacks, and the need to protect some of the most vulnerable arrivals. To help with all of this, we have tools developed through our Child Action Plan on refugee and migrant children, our previous and forthcoming action plans on migration, and my special representative's new network of focal points, which facilitate the exchange of good practice between national authorities. Similarly, we could not have known that violence would reignite in recent months in the Nagorno-Karabakh region, despite the ongoing dispute over the territory. Again, the Council of Europe does not have a mandate to resolve the situation. Conflict and territorial dispute resolution are not within our mandate. But both Armenia and Azerbaijan are Council of Europe member states. Both made a commitment to our organization to resolve their conflict by peaceful means. And both have an obligation to uphold the European Convention on Human Rights. In recent weeks, I have called repeatedly for all sides directly or indirectly involved to stop targeting civilians, to avoid further escalation, and to seek a peaceful resolution in line with the OSCE Minsk group mediation and their obligations under international law. Respect for human rights in the territory is vital and a legal obligation. This raises a broader problem. There still exist today several so-called gray zones or disputed territories between Council of Europe member states. Regardless of the politics, the people who live there are entitled to the same human rights, democracy, and the rule of law standards as any other European. National authorities have an obligation to ensure this. And the Council of Europe should have unhindered access to those territories so that we can assess the situation and provide what assistance we can. This is not the case today, and I have made addressing this problem a priority for my mandate. A further but unexpected priority has been need to help member states respond to the COVID-19 pandemic in a way that is both effective and in line with our common standards. In April of this year, I issued a toolkit to all 47 governments, providing guidance on how to balance public health needs with the protection of individuals' rights. We not only warned about the increased risk of domestic violence for women during the necessary lockdowns across Europe, but provided a means by which authorities could share best practice in addressing this. and various bodies throughout the organization have provided guidance on preventing discrimination and protecting the rights of prisoners, data protection and tracing applications, and the constitutional and legal framework of emergency powers. Just last month, I published a lessons learned document on addressing public health care issues in the context of public health crisis and beyond. In this, I announced the preparation of a new multilateral and multidimensional cooperation project to address healthcare issues and devise effective, tailor-made solutions to be implemented at a national level with a view to promoting social rights and services. More generally, I also emphasized the need for dialogue and social and economic rights in order to deal with the longer-term consequence of the pandemic. Specific proposals will be made soon concerning the role and the place of the European Social Charter. These and many other initiatives demonstrate our capacity to respond to crisis and to share our learning for the future. And I'm encouraged to see that there will be a special session on this topic during this event. In the face of coronavirus, we have shown the capacity to lead in a manner that is both responsive and responsible, that has involved standard setting and compliance, and which demonstrates the central importance of multilateralism in dealing with unprecedented cross-border threats. This tour of the Council of Europe's challenges, priorities, and achievements is, of course, far from complete, but it underlines the value we add and the premium on defending it. Progress like this is positive. So too are recent reports, both by the Committee of Ministers and the Parliamentary Assembly, which show encouraging developments in execution of judgments. However, it is important to acknowledge that every judgment must be executed in full in every member state, and conclusions and recommendations from other monitoring and advisory mechanisms should be implemented too. The European Committee for Prevention of Torture, CPT, and the Group of States Against Corruption, GRECO, the Venice Commission on Democracy through Law, and the European Committee on Social Rights, and others that combat money laundering and the financing of terrorism, and which seek to protect national minorities and regional or minority languages. These monitoring and advisory mechanisms, among others, are there to help member states uphold the law, and their recommendations should be followed to the letter. Ladies and gentlemen, European law remains of importance in Russia, as it is throughout our shared continent. The popularity and high-level attendance of this course, as we witnessed, online or in presence, even in these COVID-hit times, is testament to the demand for this to continue, grounded in dialogue and shared understanding. I welcome that. The Statute of the Council of Europe calls for peace based on greater unity. And 70 years after its ratification, the European Convention on Human Rights remains the foundation stone of that unity. Our founding fathers could not have imagined the world we live now in, or the scale and depth European Convention impact today. Their success is greater than they could have known. By working together, we can ensure that common European standards provide yet further solutions to both the long-term and immediate problems we face. It remains in all our common interest. Thank you very much, and once again, a good word for these students.